Hey, by the way, Rob.
Yeah?
Happy birthday!
Yeah, thank you.
Are you going crazy tonight? Of course you are.
Oh,
Rob, I know you're a party animal. You're going to strip clubs, aren't you?
I'm just completely out of control. It's a problem. I said that with such conviction.
You need to go to rehab.
Yeah.
Well, maybe after your birthday.
Yeah, maybe after. That wouldn't be the best birthday if I was in rehab.
No, but you'd have a hell of a story.
True. Yeah, this is true. What were you saying about Disney?
Well, that they're, obviously run by a bunch of business people who don't care about movies or theaters or people who would like movies.
Yeah, their name has been dragged through the mud this week on a couple of counts.
For good reason.
Yeah. And it's we've got their bad business practices with the city of Anaheim. And when the LA Times tried to report on it, they froze them out.
Yeah, but see, that parking thing with Anaheim, that doesn't bug me as much as, say, holding theaters ransom and saying, like, you have to play The Last Jedi until X amount of time,
Yeah. So we're going to get into that later in the show, I think, when we get into our Disney chunk. But Disney is not playing the nice studio at all this week, and they're even looking at doing like a Fox buyout, which we'll get into.
Yeah, they never play nice.
Yeah, but let's start the show.
Please listen carefully.
Welcome to a jam-packed episode of the Extra Buttery Podcast. This week on the show, we're going to be getting into the crazy Disney news that has been dominating the industry headlines the past couple of days. We're going to be talking about their draconian business practices, their demands that they're making of theater exhibitors in the run-up to Star Wars The Last Jedi, their apparent attempt to buy out 21st Century Fox and all of their media properties. What that means for some of their superhero franchises is yet to be determined. And then we'll also be talking about THOR RAGNAROK, which is the new Marvel film distributed by Disney. Both Jason and I saw that recently, so we'll get into a little bit of a review and discussion of that. And on top of that, we may also get into some news about the Apple Store's attempts to get into original content, maybe a bit of Stranger Things, but we'll see where it takes us. But coming to you from Toronto, my name is Robert Snow, and joining me from Vancouver is my co-host Jason Chen. How's it going?
Good. How are you?
Yeah, that's our first attempt at a cold open. Do you think we nailed it?
I like it better than setting everything up because we get sidetracked so often.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I'm kind of like an off the cuff kind of guy. I'm pretty I can be organized, but I'm fairly spontaneous as well. So the cold opens work better for me. I think it's just better if we just dive right in.
Yeah. I think it could be a cool way to do that. But do you want to get started with all this Disney stuff? Because I know you first picked up on the demands that they've been making of theater exhibitors and how they're kind of twisting the screws a little bit more than they did for their past Star Wars releases, like Rogue One or
a little bit. It's like they're taking all these theaters and putting them in a headlock. And not only that, but choking the life out of them.
Well, for the folks who weren't paying close attention to the trades, what did Disney propose for this release of The Last Jedi?
All right, well, you're kind of putting me on the spot, but basically the gist of it is that Disney is forcing all the movie exhibitors to show The Last Jedi for a certain period of time.
Yeah, this sounds familiar. Yep.
Yeah, if they don't comply, the theaters, I think Disney's going to just take a bigger cut of the box office revenue for those theaters.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I've kind of railed against Disney for a long, long time because they're like any big corporation. What matters to them most is the bottom line. And we know the Star Wars franchise is their big mothership. I really don't like the fact that they're forcing theaters to exhibit The Last Jedi. Not so much for the big theaters because it doesn't make a difference to them because they have so many screens. But for the neighborhood theaters and for the smaller theaters that have only one or two screens, this really, really puts them in a bind because they can only serve so many people. And I think the percentage of people who will go see The Last Jedi multiple times is quite limited, especially if you're a neighborhood theater. And so this is just Disney flexing their financial and corporate muscle and basically trying to make sure The Last Jedi shatters all box office records.
Yeah, because I think I'm a little bit fuzzy on the actual numbers that they proposed as well, but it was something like they expected at least a 6-week engagement, and if they didn't get that, then they were going to take something like 70% of the ticket sales, and they normally take something like 60.
Yeah, something like that.
The point you made about the smaller exhibitors is spot on, because some of these smaller exhibitors, like, if you only have 1 or 2 screens and you don't want to be seen to be just playing The Last Jedi nonstop on a loop for 6 whole weeks, like, that there's going to be other movies opening after The Last Jedi that some of your loyal patrons want to see. So it can really hurt your business if Disney is essentially saying, like, well, it's one thing or the other. You don't get to show The Last Jedi at all if you don't agree to one of these 2 outcomes.
Yes. Which is,
they're sort of like the evil empire or the First Order, essentially. Like they.
Yeah, I was gonna say, can you get any more corporate and evil than that?
Yeah. Well, you can understand as a giant corporation why they would do it, but it doesn't put a good taste in your mouth, and especially in light of some of the other stuff they've been pulling over the past week. Like, I don't know, did you see any of this stuff with the LA Times reporting on Disney's business practices in the city of Anaheim?
Yes, that doesn't surprise me though, because a lot of companies do that. Like, they'll make deals with the city. It's gotten to the point where I think there's some sort of like political controversy now about how much pull Disney has in Anaheim city councils.
Yeah.
And that's not out of the ordinary. I think a lot of cities and corporations go through that kind of battle.
Sure, but I think and this is like getting a little bit inside baseball, because we're dealing with like the ins and outs of local government and like pretty complex financial arrangements, and like you even need to have a bit of a head for like municipal bonds to fully grasp this story. Amazingly enough, yeah, like among many other things, Disney's interest in the city of Anaheim is Disneyland, which apparently employs like 20% of the city's population. So there's a major financial component there just for the residents of Anaheim. But in the meantime, Disney is using that clout to do things like compel the city to build a $100 million parking structure, which Disney then reaps all of the parking fees from, to the tune of something like $40 million a year, while the city of Anaheim doesn't get any kickbacks. And Disney has been demonstrated to be putting huge donations into the political action committees, the PACs, for city councilors who are pro-Disney, making it difficult for anybody working for the city of Anaheim to voice any dissent to the policies that Disney puts forward. So yeah, to your point, it's not that surprising, but I think what Disney didn't make their kind of public perception any better by banning the LA Times from any of the advanced screenings for their movies when the LA Times tried to report on this.
But see, the LA Times got their revenge though, right? Because at the end, Disney relented because the critics were like, well, if you're not going to let us review your movies, then you're going to get shut out from all the awards anyway. Yeah. So Disney released a press release that kind of made it sound like the people who made the decision in the first place at the Times were incompetent, and somehow Disney was willing to come to the table and be the good guy and come to a compromise when they're the ones that really started this whole controversy. And if you follow Disney like I do, they own ESPN, which is one of their biggest moneymakers, which is in a huge amount of trouble now because people are cutting corners. But more importantly, a lot of ESPN reporters are wading into politics because obviously race is a big issue in sports and Trump is the president. And I think this is just a bigger extension. This whole Last Jedi fiasco is just a bigger extension of how political Disney is and all their affiliates. So it doesn't surprise me that this kind of happened. I don't think this is the last time we'll hear of this kind of thing, though.
Yeah, exactly. And it just seems like the Disney news keeps on going this week, too, because there was a report, I think yesterday or the day before, from the time we're recording this, that Disney is in talks to essentially gobble up a huge portion of 21st Century Fox.
Yes.
They won't be acquiring the news and sports operations because apparently, Fox probably values those two portions of their business a little bit higher than, say, their movie holdings. And Fox is looking for ways to kind of slim down its business and be more competitive in a smaller market.
Right. But this also paves the way. Don't forget that Fox owns the rights to X-Men, which paves the way for the X-Men to potentially enter the MCU, which is another like huge boon for Disney, right?
Sure, yeah, and not to mention like all of the smaller properties that Fox also controls, like even like the TV business with Fox. They've got quite a number of scripted shows and things that people like. So it could be a huge merger, at least on the entertainment front. And of course, it means for all of the fans of the comics who have been frustrated for years that the X-Men and the Avengers can't share the screen together.
And Fantastic Four.
Yeah. But I mean, I don't know. The other kind of more cynical part of me also feels that this may not be a great thing from a narrative perspective, because it just means that we're going to be dealing with movies that are just so weighed down by hundreds of characters that they'll just be nonsense by the end of it.
Maybe. I mean, it will. I'm not exactly sure what Disney is attempting to buy from Fox, but we know it's not all of their property. So we'll see what happens. Maybe Fox smartened up like Sony and said, you know what, Disney and Marvel, you guys are way better doing this comic book stuff than we are. So maybe we can work out a small deal, that kind of thing.
Yeah, like maybe it won't go as far as like a full-on merger. Maybe it'll be something a little bit closer to that sort of strange Sony licensing deal that was set up for Spider-Man.
Right. Does this make you hate or feel any more different about Disney now? Like this whole thing?
I mean, I wouldn't say.
I mean, I'm still gonna go see The Last Jedi.
Sure, yeah. I mean, there's unfortunately they are in that space where they're making a lot of the stuff that I'm just naturally interested in, and I don't think I'd be able to wholeheartedly boycott them or anything.
No,
and I don't think anybody's really calling for that either.
No,
it hasn't really. They would have to do something like considerably more evil to get there. There's maybe a broader conversation to be had about whether it's smart for companies of this type to just get so gigantic. Especially in an age where the whole business with like ticket pricing and the revenue model of the entire industry is in such flux and, being threatened by the whole streaming thing, doesn't make sense for these giant corporate behemoths to be controlling the biggest outputs of culture. Like if one thing goes wrong, could the whole thing go sideways?
Right. I highly doubt it'll go sideways. I think The Last Jedi is just going to make a buttload of money. Whether or not it's a good movie is still up for debate, right?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, there's this kind of like steady trickle of stuff just coming out all the time around The Last Jedi, but maybe we'll save that for another episode because this.
Yeah, I'm trying not to pay attention to it because I feel like I kind of want to go in with less knowledge.
Yeah, like I'm being pretty good about avoiding the spoilers.
Right.
I think I stumbled across something a few days ago where they were referencing some sort of demonstration of like secret footage for the crew on the Irish locations, and there was a detail or two in that report that I kind of wish I hadn't seen now because it spoiled a few things for me, but nothing major, but just like the existence of a certain scene in the movie. So it was like you're kind of in that minefield time now where we're getting so close to the release of the movie that it's just going to get harder and harder to be totally innocent going in.
Right, that's true.
The other thing, sort of on the topic of the business angle that I was kind of curious about this week was this report from Bloomberg about dynamic pricing at major movie theater chains. Did you pick up on any of this stuff?
Actually, no. This is the first time I heard it. I did hear though, like that Movie Pass thing. They're starting to ban it now if you use it too much.
Yeah, I think AMC came out against that. That's one of the biggest chains in the U.S. Is anti Movie Pass, and in that case, Movie Pass is like a separate company that came out with a program where you pay something like a Netflix kind of amount per month, like something
Right.
around $10 a month, and you get unlimited movies at theater exhibitors that accept MoviePass.
Right.
But then, of course, this doesn't pose a very good financial model for the movie theaters that do actually sign on for this. So
No, but I've always thought they made most of their money from concession, not ticket sales. Or is the concession like the higher margin business? Is that
I think
maybe
concessions
that's
is the
why?
higher margin of business. It probably depends from chain to chain, but then you've also got situations where the studios, like we were just talking about with Disney, are putting like crazier demands on
Right.
exhibitors to fork over more of a share of the revenue. So if you've got a MoviePass type program in the mix,
Right. And let's not forget that AMC and Cineplex are public companies that have to pay out dividends to their shareholders. They're not like an Amazon where they can lose money and still have people buy their stock or believe in what they do. So Netflix can make it work, Amazon can make it work, but AMC and Cineplex, for them having this kind of monthly prescription or subscription, I should say, doesn't really work for them.
yeah.
Which is unfortunate because I would have signed up so fast.
Oh yeah. And I know they have an even better model like MoviePass for theaters in the UK that I've heard of that sounds fantastic. I think it's a little bit more expensive, but the perks are a bit better. But no, this dynamic pricing thing that I came across from Bloomberg is a little bit different still, because it's essentially AMC and Regal, who are Regal's probably the next biggest exhibitor chain in the US. They've both discussed on recent earnings calls an idea to pilot dynamic pricing, which would mean for big blockbuster movies, the first weekend, second weekend they come out when they're still really, really popular, to actually increase the ticket prices in a sort of Uber-style surge structure, and then lower the prices for movies that are underperforming in an effort to try to encourage people to go see movies that aren't doing as well or aren't bringing in as many people.
Oh, okay. Well, that's actually kind of interesting.
Yeah, so it's like it's something that I don't think we've really seen before, because up until now the only real kind of dynamic pricing that movie theaters have tried is what they call like
Cheap Tuesdays.
well, that or the premium tickets. Like if you go to see a movie in a VIP theater that allows alcohol, or a movie theater that has like special reclining seats or extra bright screen or better sound. There's a few different varieties of ticket that you can get that claim to offer better experiences for more money. But then this dynamic pricing idea has less to do with the actual style of a style of experience you're getting, and more just to do with like the popularity of the movie.
But how would they determine the popularity of the movie?
I think it would probably have something to do with like pre-sale numbers, like how many people are buying in advance, how many screenings are selling out, stuff like that. But the details that Bloomberg had collected from the earnings call were still very fuzzy, because I think AMC and Regal are they're not 100% sure that this is the direction they want to go in.
Right.
And then again, you also get the possible reaction from the movie studios, because a studio or a distributor would be concerned that if a particular movie fell into the category of being like a discount fare, would that kind of send a bad message about that particular movie? And if your title is being billed as like, oh, it's a discount movie this week, maybe people would be like, oh, it's kind of crappy, maybe I still won't go to see it.
Because I was like, maybe they'll drop ticket prices if the Rotten Tomatoes rating isn't so good,
Yeah, exactly.
Something like that. I feel like
then there really would be some substance to Brett Ratner's constant criticisms of Rotten Tomatoes.
He's a douche. Let's not talk about him. He doesn't deserve any airtime.
No, well, hey, unless we're getting into his sexual assault scandal.
Well, we're at the tip of the iceberg, right? So actually, this is quite a segue into Kevin Spacey.
Yeah, because I mean, I can't say that I saw this coming. I don't think a lot of his fans could have said that, but he's
been
been
rumors here and there.
He has been very private about his personal life, and
but I think everyone kind of knew he was gay.
Yeah,
which is not like the issue. Which is not the issue.
No, and in fact that was part of the problem, because essentially what happened was Anthony Rapp, who people probably remember from the Broadway show Rent and then the theatrical adaptation of that, Anthony Rapp came out and gave an interview to BuzzFeed accusing Kevin Spacey of having assaulted Rapp when he was 14 at a party. And then, of course, Spacey made that infamous tweet where he attributed it to drunken behavior. He apologized, but then he kind of added this little kicker of like, I now choose to live my life as a gay man, prompting this massive,
which is like the worst thing you could say in that moment.
Yeah. Like, I mean, the LGBTQ folks out there on the internet and anyone who anyone who considers himself an ally were infuriated by that, because, he's just trying to bury the lead by distracting people with this, what he thinks is like a more significant personal revelation.
Right.
So, that was incredibly problematic, but Rapp's remarks did open this floodgate, like we've seen with Harvey Weinstein a few weeks back, where it emboldened people who had been keeping incidents to themselves for many years to kind of come forward and say like, nope, Spacey molested me at various points in the past, and there's been a few people who have come forward now.
Right.
But it's spiraled into this situation where Netflix has officially fired Spacey from House of Cards, which was probably his most visible role from the past 5 or 6 years.
Well, I kind of stopped watching House of Cards, so maybe, I don't know, Netflix had kind of planned to cancel it in the first place, as I know ratings haven't been as good, and this is just like the perfect excuse, perfect timing to do so. Not that Netflix was looking for this kind of excuse anyway.
No, I mean, I've been watching it pretty regularly.
What season did you get to?
Oh no, I'm up to date with it. Like I watched the most recent.
Oh, are you? I think I got to like season 3, and I was like, I'm done.
Yeah, it did kind of lose its way a bit in season 3, but
totally.
It picked up again for seasons 4 and 5. So I finished the most recent season, and you could tell by the time season 5 rolled around that narratively it was winding down. Like there wasn't a lot more they could do. So the fact that they've essentially fired Spacey from the show, and whether or not they even post a finished 6th season is still up for debate.
Are they just gonna not have Robin Wright finish the series? Because I thought she was probably the most compelling character.
Well, yeah, and the way they ended season 5, I mean, they could probably get away with not doing a season 6 at all, and it would still be satisfying. Because
what happens at the end of season 5?
Well, spoilers ahead for anyone who hasn't been keeping up, but essentially, after a lot of very confusing legislative maneuvering, Spacey's character, Frank Underwood, was the president, but then he wasn't the president anymore because it became clear that he pulled some sort of Trump-like hack of the election, and then Claire Underwood, Frank's wife, stepped in as sort of an acting president and became the first female president, but only to kind of keep the seat warm while Frank sorted out the scandal. And then he sort of steps back into power, but I believe it's Claire Underwood becomes his vice president at that point.
Okay.
And she kind of finishes up season 5 with this kind of weird amount of power over Frank. It's kind of suggested that she's actually the one holding all the keys, or holding all the pieces at the end. And she even like has a moment, a very Frank Underwood like soliloquy bit moment at the very end, where she kind of looks directly into the camera and addresses the audience and says, "My turn." If I remember correctly, which is like a really cool moment if you're a fan of the show. Right. And because they ended it in that way, I think it could work as a decent conclusion for the whole series if they had to go that way. Because the options that are left to them if they do proceed with the 6th season are a little bit weird. They might have to kill off Frank Underwood off screen and then drop it into a piece of dialogue or something.
That wouldn't work well.
Yeah, that would be weird. So I don't know. Well, it remains to be seen how they'll actually approach it. So yeah, it's maybe what's happening in Hollywood will have a similar effect in other markets. Who knows?
Yeah, who knows? I I just think that this is tip of the iceberg stuff, and that a lot more allegations are come out. I do feel maybe relieved is not the right word, but maybe vindicated for Rose McGowan, who was like a huge star about 15, 20 years ago in the 90s. And people had kind of written her off as being like crazy and like mentally unstable. And so I'm kind of glad like the truth has come out. So props to her.
And she was like, wasn't she the target of like one of the former Mossad agents that Weinstein hired to kind of investigate some of the people who were making allegations?
That I had no idea. But Rose McGowan did once show up to a red carpet wearing like this, like basically wearing no clothes.
Okay.
And that kind of reinforced the belief that she was crazy or whatever. And I'm kind of glad that we actually heard the whole story and that she's given a voice, a platform, and people are taking her seriously. And granted, it's taken too long, but I mean, we as a society tend to be conservative and, like I said, just probably tip of the iceberg stuff.
Yeah. Well, there's no good way to segue out of this story. Unfortunately, it's
pretty somber topic.
It's still developing, and it's some really troubling stuff. But maybe to lighten things up a bit, we can jump over into Thor Ragnarok.
Yes, you saw it.
I did. Yeah, I liked it a lot. How about you?
I liked it a lot. I kind of want to go see it again. I'm just glad that it is so far removed from everything else related to the Avengers.
Yeah, it's a completely different tone.
Yeah, it has a bit of a Guardians of the Galaxy vibe, but even more extreme, I would say. Yeah. It does not take itself seriously very much.
No, and like it, like whereas Guardians of the Galaxy was obviously at the time both volumes of Guardians of the Galaxy were some of the most self-aware and least serious of the Marvel entries, and I almost like they're my favorites because of that. Thor Ragnarok is like challenging them for being my new favorite Marvel film, just because it dispenses with the kind of this driving plot that it feels like every other Marvel movie needs to have, and it'll have like full 10-minute tangents where they're just riffing all the time, and it's great.
Oh, okay. So they released the shorts on YouTube with Chris Hemsworth and his roommate Daryl.
Team Thor, yeah. So like the tone of Thor Ragnarok is very similar, and I totally didn't expect that. Like the type of humor in there where Thor's kind of obnoxious and sometimes kind of stupid. Yeah. And he's like, but he's not stupid in the way that he was in like the first two Thor movies, where his stupidity was kind of like a hot-headed stupidity. In this one,
he was like a fish out of water. This is him just like pretty much enjoying himself and making things up as he goes along.
Yeah, and I think a lot of it is the influence of the director Taika Waititi.
Yes,
because if you've ever seen his vampire mockumentary "What We Do in the Shadows" or his movie from last year, Hunt for the Wilder People, both of those movies have that same kind of irreverent, almost stream of consciousness kind of humor that Thor Ragnarok has, and it just feels so kind of like light and fresh compared to the rest of the Marvel writing.
The writing is big props. For Marvel having a tradition of having an end credits scene, I was a little disappointed with this one because I didn't think the end credits scene was worth sitting through the credits.
Oh, you mean the Goldblum one or the mid-credit scene?
Which one's the mid-credits?
The mid-credit scene is where they're like, and spoilers ahead if you haven't seen it, the mid-credit scene is where Thor and Loki are standing on the bridge of the ship that's full of Asgardians, and they're going to their new home, and they say something to the effect of like, I think everything's going to be just fine, and then this massive like ship the size of a planet shows up and looks very ominous.
Okay, so that one I didn't like as much.
Yeah, well, is that one of those things where the design of the ship is supposed to be like very obvious kind of call out to people who know the comics?
Yeah, it obviously ties into Infinity War somehow.
Yeah. Did you recognize it? Like, but
I assume it's a Thanos related thing because there's that scene, remember, where Loki goes to Asgard and he's trying to steal that helmet, and he sees the Tesseract, right?
Which is one of the Infinity Stones.
Yes, yeah. So I mean, that was pretty subtle, but you knew it was leading up to Infinity Stones, or Infinity War, I should say.
Because I know that someone came out of about a week ago and said that essentially the idea for the first Infinity War film, which will be Avengers 4 or Avengers 3?
4.
Avengers 3.
It'll be 4, wouldn't it?
No, because Civil War was a Captain America film.
Oh.
But it felt like an Avengers film.
Oh, okay.
It's already getting confusing. I think Avengers 3, which will be the first part of a 2-part story.
Mm-hmm.
Avengers 3 will be structured as like a heist film, apparently, where Thanos goes around and like robs the various Infinity Stones from wherever they're being kept. So maybe what we're supposed to get out of that mid-credit scene is Thanos showing up to initiate one of the heists because he knows that like Loki pocketed the Tesseract.
Right. There were plenty actual surprises in Ragnarok that really surprised me as well too. The cameos.
Oh, the cameos. Yeah. Do you all right.
I had no idea that was coming, so that was kind of nice. It was kind of interstellar in that sense.
I was almost embarrassed by how much I laughed when Matt Damon showed up.
And Sam Neill as Odin.
And Sam Neill. I was like, because what is it with Matt Damon like just jumping into people's films without any notice?
I don't know. He's almost like a meme himself now. He's
almost becoming like it's almost like he's taken on that version of himself that he plays on Kimmel.
Yes.
To heart, where he just, there's always a potential that Matt Damon may just pop into your movie in a random cameo.
He's like a white Samuel L. Jackson now.
We should make that the episode title.
Matt Damon, the white Samuel L. Jackson. Because he's in great movies, he's in really shitty movies, and he's in everything in between as well as like a cameo or where he has like one or two lines.
Yeah, and he seems to understand that like he can play around with his star status a bit.
Yeah, and also, wow, what a good job of the marketing team to make sure to keep the Thor eye thing under wraps, eh? Because they edited it for the trailer specifically.
Yeah, because they in all the trailers that we saw running up to this, there's this big climactic scene in the movie that features Thor kind of landing on the Bifrost with his eyes glowing blue with his like lightning powers. And in the trailer, you see both of his eyes lit up. But then what you discover in the final film is that Hela, played by Cate Blanchett, rips out one of his eyes.
Oh my God, she was amazing.
Oh yeah. She was having so much fun, you could tell.
Cate Blanchett, you can stab me and kill me all day if you want.
And she like
I'd be happy to be a victim.
She poured herself into that like leather armor getup and
like her helmet, like every time she turns her hair into that helmet,
yeah.
I thought that was really cool.
Oh yeah, there was some great character design.
All the women in this entire Marvel universe, save for Elizabeth Olsen, I still like you a lot. But all the girls pretty much slay their roles. Actually, Black Widow, but also I think Black Widow is just a poorly written character.
Yeah, there's some issues there.
But Tessa Thompson was fantastic, and Cate Blanchett was fantastic as usual.
Do we want to talk a little bit about Hulk? Because he has a way bigger role in this than he has in past Marvel films, other than like the Ang Lee one.
Yes, he does. I'm still not a huge Mark Ruffalo fan, but I didn't mind him in this movie at all. Hulk to me was never like an interesting comic book character. A lot of the storyline is taken from Planet Hulk, so that's why he's in it so much, and there's so many references to it.
Because I don't think I've ever fully read Planet Hulk, but is there the same kind of dynamic in Planet Hulk where Bruce Banner transforms into Hulk for like a solid number of years and loses all control of being able to turn back into his human form?
That I'm not so sure about because it was a while ago, but essentially Planet Hulk is about Hulk being like this champion of a coliseum who's like used to basically beat people up for people's entertainment.
Right, and he's kind of trapped there, and he's separated from the Avengers and all that.
Yeah,
I did love the whole setup to the big fight with between Hulk and Thor in that big gladiator arena, especially the stuff with Goldblum as the Grandmaster. That moment when they strap Thor into the kind of motorized chair and put him through like the 2001: A Space Odyssey kind of like stellar gate, but then they're playing the music from the original Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory movie. There was so much going on there, but I loved every second of it. Like, it was such an unexpected thing for like to have the Gene Wilder Willy Wonka spooky tunnel thing going on while you're in a...
Yeah, there's definitely a bit of that influence.
Well, no, they even play the music from the movie.
Oh, I missed that.
Oh yeah, it's like it's a specific music cue, like that same music from from Willy Wonka is playing.
Yeah, is it the part where they're going down the Chocolate River?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, it was a direct.
And they're going through that weird tunnel, and I think Peter from Willy Wonka, his grandma, I think, or something, or is it Mike TV? I can't remember, but one of the adults freaks out.
Yeah,
goes on like this giant acid trip.
Because it's a famous scene, right? Because it's like for kids in the 70s, like that was like a really scary thing to do
in full Technicolor.
Yeah, in a movie that was otherwise like pretty family friendly, to have this kind of spacey acid trip kind of sequence in it, it became famous for being like the scary tunnel scene. And so they drop that right into Thor Ragnarok, and Thor is like freaking out. And then they have that like, you're meeting the Grand Master now. And then Jeff Goldblum is there. It was great. But yeah, where would you rank this?
It's in the top 5. Easily.
Yeah, I would put it like top 3. I'm like,
tonally it's so different, so it's hard. But Iron Man is up there still, because I think it kicked off the whole thing. And it's really solid. It holds up really well.
Oh yeah, I'd agree with that. Yeah,
even though like there's quite a bit of CGI, it holds up quite well. I really enjoyed Spider-Man: Homecoming. Ant-Man was good as well. So Ragnarok is up there.
I mean, maybe this will close us out on this movie, but I think it's been a long time since we've had a series where the third entry of a particular character is actually the best.
No, it's rare for any trilogy for the third one to be the best.
Yeah, because I don't think anybody's arguing that it's not the best. Like compared to like the Kenneth Branagh one, the first one was very very spotty. Like it felt like 3 episodes of TV kind of edited together. The second one was just a lot of blah.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's also pretty rare for the second one to be the worst one.
Yeah,
and I'm kind of glad that in Ragnarok they kind of like through exposition explain what happened in the Dark World, because I remember nothing about the Dark World. I had even forgotten that Odin like disappeared.
It has been a long time though since the Dark World came out. Like I feel like there's been like 10 Marvel movies come out in that space of time. It hasn't been that many, but it feels like that.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Yeah. So, anyways, it's that was a highlight of my movie watching the past couple of weeks. Did you get all caught up on Stranger Things?
Yeah, I texted our mutual friend Kate Wilkinson, I think a couple weeks back, but I crushed the entire season one sitting.
Oh, nice. That's like 9 hours.
Yes, I think like, yeah, well, not quite, but
well, yeah, because not every episode is like a full hour, but
yeah, but I completely crushed the entire season one sitting, and I have no regrets.
Yeah,
except for that one episode. That
everyone's talking about that one. Yeah,
because midway, or not even midway, like 5 minutes through, or maybe longer than that, 10 minutes into that episode, I turned to my buddy and said, "We are watching Stranger Things, right?"
Yeah. Because this is the one where Eleven goes to Chicago to try to track down her mother, and yeah.
Yeah. And this is kind of like Game of Thrones, where I feel like the editing does it a disservice, because her journey to Chicago is supposed to happen concurrently with everyone going to the facility, right? But the way they shot it feels like she goes on this Chicago journey after everything that's in the facility has happened.
Yeah, because so we're like, we leave off like what was a decent cliffhanger when we last see everyone in the lab, and then we sit through an entire bottle episode essentially, where we don't see any action back in Hawkins.
Yeah, I was like, when did we start watching a Suicide Squad with 11 here? Like, what the hell? Like, and those characters, I felt, maybe I'm not into like the punk rock thing, but they didn't feel like they were from the same era.
Yeah. I mean, I also don't know enough about punk, but
maybe that's the difference between Hawkins and Chicago, but the character design and everything about them did not scream 80s to me.
Yeah, do you think it was more like 90s-esque?
A little bit, and a little bit of steampunk-esque.
Okay.
It just didn't quite fit.
Yeah.
As a whole, though, I don't know if I enjoyed season 2 more than season 1.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I feel like season 1 was a little tighter, and I think I might have enjoyed it more because that 11 episode sticks out. I do like certain developments in season 2. I thought the guy who played Billy, who plays also the Red Ranger in Power Rangers.
Dacre Montgomery.
Yeah, Dacre Montgomery. He had a very interesting character, and every time he was on the screen, I was kind of captivated because he was so unpredictable.
I mean, he put in a pretty good performance. I mean,
he did.
For a character that's kind of brought in to just be kind of a human antagonist when most of your attention is with the more supernatural stuff that's on the go. He really threw himself into it. Like he gets into kind of like Joker levels of
not that
enjoying
far.
pain.
Yeah.
Well, no, not that far, but like when he's fighting Steve in the finale episode, like he's like laughing to himself, and he's getting into some pretty deranged behavior there. And I was like, oh, well, okay, yeah, he didn't have to go that far, but he did.
His relationship with, was it Steve?
Yeah, the one played by Joe Keery.
Yes. Okay, his relation with Steve is kind of weird and funny in a way.
Yeah.
I keep going to that basketball scene where like I feel like Billy's trying to be a friend to him, but then he's not really. There's that shower scene where I'm like, I don't understand the point here.
Yeah.
I'm not sure what you're trying to show. And is Billy supposed to be a racist in the show, by the way? Like, what's his deal with...
Yeah, they're kind of poking at that.
Lucas.
Yeah, they seem to...
Yeah.
They don't really say one way or the other, but...
Is he coming back for season 3? Do we know?
I think so, yeah.
Okay, so I hope we get to see more of him because his family dynamic is very interesting.
Now that the sister character, Max, has been pulled into what's going on the whole supernatural side of things in Hawkins,
yes.
It feels like they're going to have to pull Billy in some way, and maybe even the parents.
Yeah.
I don't know. The parent characters in the show always seem to be blissfully oblivious to what's going on.
Yeah. I am a little surprised they killed off Sean Astin.
Yeah.
Who plays like a really good guy. He always plays like kind of the really good guy. So good that he's unbelievable in the sense that I kind of half expect him to like backstab someone or turn against someone and play like a spy of some sort.
When I watched the first 3 or 4 episodes, we did it at Kate Wilkins's place. In fact, she was having a viewing party themed around the whole show. It was a lot of fun.
Wow, thanks for the invite, Kate. God.
You would have flown all that way for that?
Maybe. I didn't get invited though, so moot point.
Okay. Anyways, we were all watching it together. It was about like 15 of us, and
15?
Pretty much
Holy shit.
Yeah, and pretty much all of us were convinced that Bob was like either a communist spy who was trying to get the lowdown on what was happening in Hawkins to help the Soviets,
right?
Or he was somehow affiliated with the lab.
Yes, I thought he was affiliated with the lab too.
So I was like searching, I was like listening really closely to his dialogue, trying to pull out like little details that they could then reveal later on were actually him talking about his secret life. But no, he was. But
it turns out he's just a
super nice guy. Although in that after show that that's available when you finish watching season 2, Beyond Stranger Things, the Duffers talk about how they were actually going to kill off Bob Newby a lot earlier. They actually wanted they wanted Will to be possessed by the Mind Flayer in, I think it's episode 4, when Bob and Will are riding in the car together. And they wanted, apparently in a really early outline of that episode, they were going to have Will become possessed and kill Bob in that scene.
That would have been pretty freaky.
Yeah.
He kind of has like a Jurassic Park type death though, where he's like being chased by those demodogs that like can open doors and stuff. Speaking of demodogs, I think the reason I like season 1 more is I like the Demogorgon more as a villain than the Demodogs.
I would agree with you on that point. Yeah, there was a lot more of like a horror vibe to the full grown Demogorgon, where like, you know, they're doing stuff with the editing and there's like flashes of light and you can't really see the Demogorgon. It's left kind of to your imagination what it looks like. Compare that to the Demodogs, where they have more of a budget this year, so they could spend a bit more on CGI. So then you end up seeing the Demodogs a whole lot, and it's kind of less is left to your imagination. So it's not quite as spooky in my view.
They're just kind of like the raptors in Jurassic Park. They're just like somehow super smart and super vicious.
Yeah.
And super dangerous. Have you ever seen Dreamcatcher? The movie based on that Stephen King book?
No.
Okay. So another reason I probably like season 1 more is because it didn't feel like it made an attempt to reference as many pop culture or horror tropes or whatever you want to call it as much as season 2.
Okay.
Do you know the story of Dreamcatcher?
No.
Okay. So Dreamcatcher is basically this alien life form, I think, comes to Earth or pops up somehow, and it tries to make its way into the city sewer system so it can like contaminate the water and turn people into like monsters and stuff.
Okay.
But there is this part where the monster takes over one of the main characters, who is played by Damian Lewis.
Oh, okay.
And like the whole premise of the movie is that I think you kind of go into the character's subconscious, and his brain is kind of represented by like a maze of rooms and compartments, and he's being chased by this monster. And once he's caught by this monster, he's kind of like completely taken over. He becomes like a pawn of this monster. And that really reminded me of Will being controlled by the Upside Down and the Mind Flayer.
Oh, yeah.
It was almost too similar. Also with how like at the end of season 1, he coughed up that baby Demodog into the sink, and how it travels through like the sewer system and has this like system of tunnels underneath the earth, how it like tries to basically take over the world. And so it really reminded me of that. I felt season 2 was kind of predictable because it relied so much on classic thriller and horror cliches, but they were very well executed.
Yeah.
Whereas season 1, really, there are a lot of things that caught me a little more off guard, and that just might be because it's season 2 of a known franchise, so you're not as surprised. But
oh yeah, well, I mean, I'm still trying to decide like which of the 2 seasons I like the most. But one thing I will say in the defense of season 2 is that the Duffer Brothers are trying to. You can get the sense that they're trying to experiment a little bit more with what the show is. It seems that they're actually deliberately putting aside some of those nostalgic references to 80s pop culture in favor of kind of developing their characters a little bit more. Like they allow Lucas and Dusty to have their own little dramas, you know, which is something that like not every show would do. A lot of shows we've seen would leave Dusty and Lucas as like sidekick characters who just kind of like crack one-liners, but you know, they develop their kind of inner lives in these episodes quite a bit. And then there's the new relationships that we're seeing between like Steve and the kids. Like Steve's moments with Dusty are probably some of my favorites on a character level of anything in the show so far. Because there's this great like evolution to Steve's character where he goes from being kind of just the annoying jerk boyfriend in season 1 to like a fully fledged human essentially in this one.
Yeah. And the girl Natalia Dyer.
Oh yeah, Nancy,
right. So I thought she was a lot more bearable in this season, and I'm kind of glad they explained the Barbara thing.
Yeah. They
there's that scene where they eat KFC for dinner, right? And it's got like the retro bucket and everything. And I was looking at that scene. I was like, man, the KFC we get looks nothing like the chicken they have on that show. Like the chicken they're eating looks way better.
Yeah, they must have like gone back to reference photos from the 80s, like the way it looked. And then they hired like a caterer to make like the perfect KFC from the 80s.
Yeah, well, KFC's gone downhill, so that was kind of one thing I picked up on.
Yeah, that's props to their production design.
Yes, yeah.
Even the chicken looks great.
And also, I also love the subplot with Eleven going to see her mom.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Do you think there's going to be a spin-off series with 8 and the other kids in that facility?
I mean, they could definitely go that direction if they wanted to. I know that, every major corporation, major media corporation nowadays has got back pocket ideas for spin-offs. So yeah, they could totally go that way. Question is though, is that crew of people, could they sustain a show in the way that the Stranger Things cast does?
That entire cast of characters is just like, I don't know. It kind of got to me a little bit. I couldn't really wait for the episode to end, to be honest.
Well, I feel like that episode would have been a lot better if they had just cut back to Hawkins a bunch more.
Yeah, like I said, like it's kind of like Game of Thrones. Like the way they just spliced it and edited it didn't make much sense.
Yeah,
it was kind of actually infuriating.
I'm definitely looking forward to season 3 or Stranger Things 3. Apparently, they're gonna keep going with this whole idea of making it seem like a sequel series.
And they're
something.
gonna like age up the kids too, right? So like they don't mind skipping a couple years because they're getting into the age where like they're gonna change and grow pretty darn fast, right?
Yeah.
And I don't think they're all the same age.
No, yeah, there's a few years between some of the actors, but I think the next season, like, some of the guys, their voices are going to start to drop a bit, which will be funny, and we're going to be dealing with like preteens they're already preteens, so
they're
like,
all teens.
They'll be teens then, and they'll be like, the classic like hormones are raging, and then maybe they'll be
their voice was just gonna crack like midway through.
Maybe there'll be a little bit more relationship drama and stuff on the go.
Okay, did it bother you that Will and Eleven's relationship felt a little too adult?
In the sense that like they're already like making out during the snowball?
No. Just like emotionally, they're so like almost mature. They're not like kids anymore. Like their love story seems exactly like that, a love story,
Oh, they're like emotionally supportive of each other.
Yeah, they're really not kids. Like, here, let me share a chocolate bar with you.
Yeah,
and that's like their act of love. They're more like, oh my god, he's dancing with some other girl on a skateboard.
Yeah, or even more so,
or
like
just like, I need you so much, Mike, where are you?
When 11 comes back to the cabin at the end of episode 8, like Finn I'm calling him Finn, that's the actor's name. Mike and 11 kind of share a hug, and they're like, "Oh, I was like waiting for you every single day," and I'm like,
yeah.
like that's a pretty like intense.
I know, right?
Yeah.
So you know what I
didn't really think about it at the time, but yeah, you're totally right.
It's really intense. Like Mike was really, really, stuck in a rut. He was really going through that breakup. He's not doing well. Well, not even a breakup. Yeah, not even a breakup.
A breakup caused by interdimensional monsters and
yeah. Where I'm just like, dude, you're like 10 years old. Just relax for a little bit, please.
But maybe for the last thing we'll cram into this episode, the other thing that kind of caught my eye also in the streaming game this week was the report that the Apple Store or Apple Music is starting to take pitches from people in Hollywood for their original shows for their competitor to Netflix and Amazon.
Didn't they just greenlight one?
Was it or you're not thinking of Carpool Karaoke, right?
No. That's not. I was thinking of Jennifer Aniston and Reese Witherspoon. They just got a show that was greenlit.
For Apple Music?
Because I just saw it today. I didn't read the article because I'm not interested in either of the actors.
Ooh.
Yeah. Okay. Jennifer Aniston, Reese Witherspoon morning show drama lands at Apple with 2-season order.
Okay.
They just came out today, November 8th.
Okay, so some of those pitches are starting to make their way to green lights. That's interesting. Because what I heard, which was kind of interesting, is that Apple is apparently only taking pitches that are like totally G-rated.
Oh.
At the most.
Really? Interesting.
Yeah, they're not interested at all in like Game of Thrones level violence or profanity or nudity.
Okay, that I understand, but Game of Thrones is pretty darn extreme.
Yeah, like that's the furthest point of the spectrum, but they're not even like, they don't want to take anything with like even curse words. Like you can, not even like a raunchy comedy. Like you might expect if Reese Witherspoon is in a is in a movie. Like, she's done stuff where she's like, she gets to drop a few F-bombs or things like that. But Apple's not interested in that at all. It has to be like, they're looking for something more along the lines of CBS's This Is Us.
Oh, do you watch This Is Us?
No, but I mean, like,
okay.
I've heard that it's super, super clean.
Really? I've heard it's good.
Well, I mean, it's
not the fact that it's clean, it's the fact that it's really good. So I'm really curious.
Because I've heard that, like, yeah, you can say that it's really good from like it's well produced and it's like emotionally engaging and all of that, but it's also very, very clean. So make of that what you will.
I mean, it's cable TV. It has to be clean.
Or network TV, you mean?
Or network TV, yes. Sorry. So it has to be clean.
Yeah, I mean, the networks have been trying a few more edgy things recently, but yeah, they're nowhere near what cable or the streaming people are doing. But then I saw a report about the whole Apple thing, and they essentially made the point that because this is Apple's kind of first foray into their building their own streaming platform, that they're playing things really safe because they don't want to throw all of their eggs in the basket of like a raunchy comedy or a violent sci-fi or fantasy thing and have it fail and then be out a huge amount of money.
See, I almost feel like that's the wrong way to go if you're going to do this business. Like, I think Netflix has been super successful because they've been so edgy and willing to take risks.
Yeah, because I mean, you look at something like House of Cards. I mean, that was their first original series, and that opened up with like murder and cursing and nudity and sexuality and everything.
Not even that. Like, Stranger Things, I thought was something that was completely different from anything else on TV.
True. Yeah.
Glow, same thing. It was very different from whatever was on TV.
Yeah, but Glow has a lot of adult content in it.
Yes, true. But again, that's a risk that Netflix was willing to take, right? Mindhunters was another risk, I thought, which is a great show, by the way. I really liked it. A couple of the other ones with Narcos and Bloodlines, those are more of the more generic stuff that if you tone it down more would have been on network cable.
Yeah.
But the big hits are the ones that they really took risks with.
Yeah, so I don't know if this is
gonna... And some of them don't pan out. I mean, Netflix has had a few shows canceled already.
Oh, sure, yeah.
But, I mean, I think if you take risks and you hire good people and you do a good job of it, the good outweighs the bad.
Yeah, because, I mean, you want to be in that position where you can convince the consumer that your platform is a must-have app. Essentially, like
because you have a differentiating factor, you have something that nobody else has. So if Apple goes down this like G-rated route, there's probably very little content in there that would appeal to me personally.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I'm kind of in the same camp. Like, not to say that I'm that my bar for watching something is that it has to be full of cursing or something.
No, it doesn't. But it has to be different. I'm not interested in a family drama.
Yeah, and it's I don't know. It feels harder or more of a challenge for a show to really grab you if it's kind of censoring stuff or...
Yeah, I mean, sitcoms have a shelf life, right? Like King of Queens, The New Girl, all these shows, they have a certain shelf life. Like, I don't even know if Kimmy Schmidt's been canceled or not on Netflix.
No, I think it's still doing okay.
Still doing okay?
Yeah. It's got its audience.
But you know what I mean? Like, I'm just not interested. Like, The Big Bang Theory is a horrific show. Modern Family started off great, and now it's a horrible show, too.
Yeah, I'm with you on both of those.
Yeah, so, like, if you go this G-rated route, there's certain things that you just can't do, and it really limits you, and it ends up being just, like, characters end up being caricatures. And the plot gets stupid and silly, and the conflicts are dumb. That's my rant.
Well, on that note, your move, Apple. Jason is taking you to task. But that about does it for this episode of the show. Coming to you from Toronto, my name is Robert Snow.
And from Vancouver, I'm Jason Chen. Thanks for listening. Please check out our website, kinetoscope.ca, for our latest reviews, including my Vith reviews and Rob's Thor Ragnarok review. And thanks for listening, and we'll talk to you next time.